There's a big difference between the 9 to 5 job and getting a paycheck every week than going out on your own and having to hustle and be responsible for everything. Until you have had to go home on a Friday and tell your family, I didn't bring home a paycheck, I paid my guys, if I get a check comes in that was due early next week, I can pay myself. That's the reality, or your wife says, how come there's no money in the checkbook? And your answer is, well, I wrote a personal check to the company to cover payroll. That's a real world. And there are people in big companies making a few $1,000,000 a year that still have to do that from time to time because it's such a tough industry. So you need to be prepared for those kind of things.
Hi everybody, Gavin Coyle. I'm the Gaffer, and the good guests just keep on coming. We've got Ron Stein all the way from the States, and this is a particular person that I really was looking forward to getting on the show, because Ron is in a space that is very saturated, I feel, in terms of helping and coaching and mentoring people in the construction space. And we've all got the LinkedIn messages and the Facebook messages of people trying to promote themselves to help us or use guys to the next level in terms of scaling your business or even just stabilizing your business. But I wanted to find somebody who lived the experience, who cuts through the BS and just gets straight into the nuts and bolts of how to improve your business and have a proper return on investment for working with somebody that knows and lived the experience of where you guys are at today. And Ron is that man. Now, I had to go across to Florida in the United States to find him, but we found him. And Ron, we're delighted to have you on I'm the Gaffer podcast. How are you today?
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, and we tussled for a while to get you on board. Mostly my interruptions rather than your interruptions, but just give the listeners a sort of a sense of who is Ron Stein and where did you come from and how did you get to where you are today?
Okay. I've been in the industry for over 45 years now. I have a BS degree from Utica University. I hold a general contractor's license and a home inspector's license in the state of Florida. I've probably spent a little over half of my career on the owner's rep side of the table and the other half of the career on the general contractor and the developer side of the table. The bulk of the work that I've done has been in New York. I've been down in South Florida for 10 years now. I mainly specialize in vertical construction. I have done a bit of horizontal construction. Almost every new build, subdivision, multifamily involves road, water, sewers, utilities. So I have a good handle on that. Handled projects from $50,000 to $83 million, from a few weeks to 3-year projects, all across the sector, residential, multifamily, condos, commercial, K-12, colleges, universities, pretty much anything up to 5 stories. Probably the only sector that I haven't been involved in at all is either manufacturing or industrial.
Wow. Yeah, like your LinkedIn profile says it all, Ron, as well. And the one thing that I got from you was how you understand people. You seem to have a really good. You seem to have a way of sort of, understanding people and understanding how people, what moves them and what kind of motivates them, or, I think that comes probably from your project management experience in terms of the behaviors of people and how to get the best out of people. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. In the construction industry, there's all kinds of characters, and one size doesn't fit all. So you have to understand where people are coming from. You have to understand a little bit of their background and then tailor yourself and how you communicate with them to what works with them. Funny little story. Many years ago, my teenage daughter was helping out at a job trailer. We were finishing up a job, and she was putting together all the O&M manuals for me, making the multiple copies. And one night after dinner, she says to my wife, I think Daddy has multiple personalities. And my wife says, why? And she says, well, at home he acts one way, and then at work with the bosses, he acts a different way. And then when he's talking with the guys in the field, he's acting even different. And I looked at her and I said, that's life. You have to communicate with people the way that works best for them. And if it's, swearing and, being a little gruff, and that's how you deal with one person. And then when I'm talking to an owner, I have to talk like a businessman and a gentleman, and there's everything in between.
Yeah, I love that because even from my own background with health and safety, I definitely found that, going in with the, hard sort of banging the table doesn't work. In 99% of the cases, it doesn't work. It does work with some individuals are able to take it, but a lot of people just can't take it. And especially today, I see a lot of people definitely won't. There's no carrot by banging tables and shouting and roaring at people. And I think the construction industry has changed a lot from what it was years ago, where it was basically, you'd be gone by lunchtime if you don't pull your socks up. Have you any experience in that regard?
I was on a multifamily job once, and I had the owner of a drywall contractor come in my trailer, get in my space, standing 2 feet in front of me, yelling and screaming about something and spitting, and I looked at him and said, okay, there's something going wrong. You're not going to come into my house and treat me this way. Go outside, have a cigarette, calm down. Come back in, and I'll give you as much time as you want to work this out, but I'm not having this conversation like this. And he just looked at me, and I said, come see me in 15 minutes. And he left, and he came back, and we had a great conversation, and we worked out his little problem that wasn't nearly as big as it seemed when he was yelling and screaming. And from then on, for the rest of the project, we had a great relationship.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I've seen cases myself where people actually have a lack of confidence in their own ability, and therefore their mechanism to hide that particular characteristic is to shout and roar and, have this alpha male type of an approach because they don't know enough about the job or about the task or about the position that they're in. And so in order to hide it, they have this masquerade of bulliness, if you like, or just being nasty, and it keeps a distance, and everybody's kind of on their toes when that individual comes around. But deep down, if that person just, became more comfortable about themselves and who they are as a person, and just we're all flawed. And I think, it's healthy to basically say, look, I don't know. I don't know enough about this. And maybe there's not enough of that going on. And again, I suppose you would have a better understanding when you deal with all these business owners that they're probably putting up this facade to say, we'll get this done. We're the best company for the job. And then they're kind of like, I'll get the job and I'll think about it later. I'm sure you have, that sort of assessment to do when you're talking to business owners.
Well, and I've seen proposals come in where they're proposing their A team, and by the time the job gets going, those people aren't available. They went to another job, and then you find out that the people on your job are the C team, and they're just not performing. And you have to deal with it, and you have to figure out how to get the best out of people, and sometimes you have to ask for a change of staff.
Yeah. No, I definitely can see that. But
a good company can ruin a job if they don't put the right people on it. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean there's something wrong with the company. It means the people that you got weren't the right people for that job.
Yeah. Get the job first and we'll think about it later is kind of, it still does happen in today's age. Don't worry about executing the job. Just get the job first and we'll think about it later. I think there's a lesson in that in itself, that not enough people, in my mind, or in my opinion, and it's only my humble opinion, but I see a lot of people pricing for jobs and they don't have the capacity to deliver those jobs. But and no, not many, and the client isn't asking that question. Like, what have you got currently going on at the moment? Shows your books and shows your turnover. Maybe this job is too big for you, or maybe we want to employ you, but maybe we should bring you in under somebody else's umbrella so that they can help manage that particular package. I don't think there's enough done in that area.
Working for a GC, being part of a team that worked to interview and get projects, I was listed on 3 projects in the same month. And I looked at my boss one day and said, how can you keep putting me on every project? I can't do them all if we get them all. And he said, let's get them and we'll figure out how to staff them later. And I understand that philosophy, but my personal beliefs are not promise something you can't deliver, because only one out of those 3 people were going to get me, And yes, there are the odds. If we only got one job, no foul. But if they got 2 jobs, then somebody wasn't getting me.
Yeah, I think this one particular area is definitely something that people should be putting on their radar. Is the whole area of capacity, and as you said, if you're putting down an organization chart, it's up to the client really to execute the fact that, no, you said that these people were going to be on the job, so therefore these people will be on this job. You can't turn around and say later on, sorry, but we had to move things around because there's a project being delayed down the road. But I suppose there's a lot of trust on the table going into a job, that you trust that, okay, fair enough, they're the right company, so they're going to deliver. But as you said, like, everybody's going to put the A team on the organization chart up front. A guy with 15, 20 years experience. The next thing you find out that the project manager hasn't done a drywall project before, ever, on his own, that he's just basically been brought up as a tradesman and hasn't actually fulfilled the role of a project manager. Like, I suppose on the contractor side, it's up to them to honour what they said that they're going to deliver. But on the client side of things, it's up to them to hold the contractor responsible and accountable.
Absolutely.
So, in terms of your business, talk to me around, when you started that business and why you started that business.
2 years after I graduated from college, I was working for a small contractor in the pole barn equestrian business, and it wasn't going the way they wanted. He had his interests other places. He was open in a restaurant, and the business wasn't doing well, so I decided it was a good time for me to look for something else to do. And I landed on a position as a construction manager for a local hospital. And they knew it was only a temporary position for maybe 24 months. They didn't want to hire an employee, so they asked me to come to work for them as a contract employee. And it was a great job, and it was a great experience. It was local. But during that 2-year period, I had other people asking me, can you do this? Can you do this? And it parlayed into a business. And that business lasted for 13 years until the local economy slowed down to the point where there was almost no new construction. And I was in New York at the time, and business in New York in those years was very difficult. And I decided to go out and go to work for a developer. And I left the business behind. The one regret I had was during those 13 years, I never really had a mentor. And I was young in the business. I would be going for interviews. I was 24 years old. I'd be sitting in front of, we did a lot of K-12 projects as owners reps. And I'd been sitting in front of a school board, and they'd look at me and say, well, you never did a job this big. And I'd say, well, I built classrooms. I built laboratories. I said, you have 10 classrooms and 10 laboratories. It's no different. I said, it's actually easier. You know, the trades aren't there for 2 weeks and they're gone and it's the next trades. The trades are there for 2 months. And ultimately, they just said, you don't have the experience. A few years later, I was proposing to be the owner's rep on a bus facility for the county. And I had worked for years as a consultant for the county for a housing program that they were doing. And similar thing happened. The planning director called me up one day and said, Ron, I see you put in an application, but you've never done a building like this. He said, we love what you do for us. We like you. We know you're hardworking, but you know, you just don't have this much experience. And I said, you know me, give me the job. I'll hire the right people. We'll get the job done. And he said, no, we just can't. You know, the people that have to approve this are going to look at your resume, look at your business history, and it's not going to happen. And that was the point where I was like, you know, I need somebody to guide me, you know. Yeah. And that's a catch-22 in business too. When you're trying to grow, do you hire good people before you have jobs and then find a job for them, or you get a job and then hire people? Yeah. The mistake I made was everybody I hired was at least my experience or a little bit less, and I was helping them grow and teaching them. And I probably should have been hiring people smarter than me with more experience than me. So when I put them on these resumes, I would have gotten more jobs, and maybe that 13 years would have lasted 40 years.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? It's kind of like I could see it is go back to fake it until you make it. What we were discussing earlier on, you know, you kind of do have to sort of hedge your bets at the early stages and just hope that the cards will fall your way. And sometimes it doesn't, and then people go out of business or go bankrupt because they just don't get that opportunity. That one opportunity just doesn't come quick enough for them, and they run out of road in terms of cash. And then, you know, obviously if you go the other direction and you make the wrong decision of taking on the wrong people, they can, you know, turn your business into a toxic environment very quick, and it can also go into reverse. So like the finding people and then managing people, I think, is probably one of the biggest challenges in any business, regardless of whether you're construction or whatever industry you are in. If the people doesn't work, the company doesn't work. Would that be your experience?
A business is ultimately people. I mean, in any industry, it's the people. I mean, accounts receivable, you don't buy a business based on accounts receivable. You buy a business based on the reputation, and that's based on the work that the people do. I worked for a mid-sized GC that got bought out by a large GC, and I was given a contract to stay on. They knew that what they weren't really just buying the business building and the name and the reputation, that there was a half a dozen people that they felt were the key people in that company and offered us contracts to stay on, and you know, a non-disclosure contract, and it was good for me. I mean, I just kept on working. I got extra money, but it was a two-way commitment. They were committing to me because they saw my worth, and I was committing to stick with them. Yeah. And I probably had been with the company for 6 years at that point, and I was ultimately there for 13. So it worked out well. But that just goes to show when companies expand by acquiring other companies, they typically know they have to retain the best employees in order to get what they're really buying.
Yeah, sustainability. Basically, it boils down to how can we sustain this model and scale it. And if the people doesn't work, well then it's not worth the risk. So going back to your progression, we didn't get to the point where you actually went out on your own business, as in what you're doing now.
Well, back in April, I had hit my 45-year mark. I was working for a municipality as an owner's rep, and I had spent the last 4 years taking a very large upgrade to their water treatment plant through design and permitting. Originally was intended to be 2 years worth of design, but with all kinds of permitting issues, additions that were put in, plant changes, code changes, it ended up taking 4 full years to get ready to put the job out to bid. At that point, I knew that we had at least 6 months to bid the project, get the contractor to pull the final permits, get ready to go. And there wasn't a whole lot for me to do for 6 months. And the project had originally been slated for 24, but with all of the procurement issues, and this particular project had a ton of switch gears and electronic controls and things that we knew were running not the typical 10, 12 week lead time, but they were running 10, 12, 14 months. So we had pre-qualified some bidders, and in discussing things with them, we decided to change the project scope from 24 to 36 months. So I'm sitting there in this little lull period saying, I'm not going to be here in 3 years. I'm 66 years old. I'll be 67 when it starts. I'll be 70 years old. I don't know if I'll be doing what I'm doing at the end of this project. And I sort of had a come to Jesus meeting with myself. And I said, it's not fair to my boss and to the municipality I'm working for to start the project and a year or two down the line say, nah, I've had enough. I'm going to leave you. Because a very, very complex project. You can imagine being intimately involved in the 4 years of design. And I'm very, very hands-on design. The number of plans I reviewed and commented on, and working with the plant staff to make sure they were getting what they wanted. I just felt it was the professional thing to do to say, let me bow out before the job starts and let you have time, that 6 months to find somebody, get them acquainted with the job and be there for the whole process. So then I said, what am I going to do? Don't want to stop working. I don't want to be a Walmart greeter. I don't fish. I don't like rocking chairs. So I got to find something to do, but not a full-time gig. And with a lot of soul searching, I said, I spent 45 years unofficially mentoring people. Every single project team I had, there were people there that were similar experiences or sometimes fresh out of college. And we spent a lot of time working through trainings, mentoring, walking around the site, pointing things out. I had one project with 2 women fresh out of college, really smart women, as project engineers, working with a very difficult architect. So every 2 weeks we had an architect owner meeting, and we're sitting in the meeting and these 2 ladies are taking notes, and I could see some days their eyes were glassed over. So we made it a point of the first thing we did when we got back to the office trailer, I'd say, what didn't you understand?
Yeah.
What was said? Was it a term? Was it a concept? Did you want to know why my response to a question? So we got into the point of them taking notes of what they needed to ask me, and we spent a half an hour or more after every meeting having teachable moments. And I enjoyed doing it. It was great for them, and I know I love doing that. And I said, uh, maybe that's what I should do. Maybe I should take my wealth of knowledge, my patience, my enjoyment with working with other people and trying to help them achieve their goals, and start doing that as my part-time gig now. And that's where I've come to.
Brilliant. I love it. We had a recruitment company CEO on the show a couple of months back, and this very topic came up about there's a lot of really top talent like yourself that do actually want to give back in some form, but they don't want to deal with the 9 to 5 or the 7 to 7 business of operations in construction, but they do want to give some they want to keep their feet in the game in some respect. And this is an area where the recruiter was kind of talking to CEOs and talking to executive level guys and saying, okay, you want to retire, but have you thought about going back in maybe on a flexible kind of arrangements just to bring the next generation forward and to remove all the barriers and potholes that might be in their way that they don't see, or they might not be aware of. And I suppose that's so important, especially in construction, because we're losing a lot of grey hair out of the industry, and you can kind of see there was a shift towards PhDs and degrees, which I've no problem with, but you're having a 27-year-old or a 28-year-old arrive on a site who's highly qualified academically, but just has never lived the experience of construction like the way they did in the past. Is that your experience too?
Yes, and I've been approached by people, graduating with a BS degree, being recommended to go into a master's degree, an advanced master's degree. I could stay another year, I can get my master's degree. What should I do? And my answer usually is go to work. Go to work for a year or two, go to work for a company that provides some educational benefit. After a year or two, if you really feel like you missed something and you want to get a master's degree, there are so many nighttime weekend opportunities now for working professionals. Do that. I said, yeah, it's tempting to stay in school for one more year, but you'll learn more in the real world in a year. And then you may find out that you want to change your direction a little bit. Instead of getting a BS in construction management, if you're more geared towards the business side, maybe you want an MBA. Maybe you want to get involved in development. You got to know what you don't know. So education is a great thing. And that's why I loved working in the K-12 and the college universities, because I felt I was doing more than building a building. I was building something for the community, to provide education for up and coming people of all types. It was more than just building a Starbucks.
Yeah, but you got to have a balance, right?
Yes. And the same thing goes, when we were doing hospitals and government buildings, those are community needs, and you get a little bit more satisfaction out of that than, multifamily. Yes, we need housing, but, it's different when you're building something for an entire community than when you're building for a few. So getting back to your first question, education is great. Higher education for some people, but if you've ever tried to read a doctorate dissertation on construction, that's the reason why I had to get out of college. It just doesn't make sense, and it's all theory. And sometimes you wonder why did they write this big long thing on that?
Yeah, no, I get that. Tell me, give me sort of common profiles of people that would come to Ron looking for help, and why would they look for help? We know, I have an idea why they would look for help, but give me an idea, number one, why they would look for help from you, and number two, what type of profile of people are presenting to you to look for this help?
Okay, I'm basically trying to work with two different types of people. What I call the early career professionals, whether you're just getting into it, whether you're into it for a couple of years, and you want to gain some skills to help you move up quicker than you would on your own. The other type is either young companies, early stage companies that need to get their policies and procedures in place, learn how to increase their revenue and increase their profits, and along with that are the trade people that are ready to go out on their own and open their business. And the first thing I say to those people is business is a three-legged stool. You have work, you have administration, and you have business development. Now, each of those three, those are broad categories. There's 100 things in each one of those, but you've been a tradesman for 20 years, you know work. Okay?
Yeah.
Do you know how to run a business? Legal structure, accounting, taxes, hiring, payroll, all of those things. And the answer usually is, well, a little bit. It's like, okay, so you need help with that. Now, business development. What do you know about bidding, estimating, cultivating customers? I said, if you don't do business development, you don't have work. Yes, your neighbor can give you a job and you do that job and you finish, but where's your next job? So I said, as a solo entrepreneur, you need to get a handle on all three of those. And if you are lacking in some of those skills, you need to learn how to fill that in. And in today's world, some of that can be done with virtual assistants. You don't need to go out and hire somebody. Business development is a little bit more of a hands-on, but maybe that's the person you need to hire on a part-time basis or on a contingency basis. But you can't ignore any of those three legs of the stool. And I've worked with a few people and got them from, Ron, I have my license, I just bought the insurance, so I'm legal. Now what?
Yeah. I see. I love that. This is one of the reasons we wanted to get you on the show, Ron, was because we get pitched quite a bit from mentors and coaches looking to come on the show, and they have all these fancy documents and acronyms, and they have these kind of like, the 10 commandments or the 5 go-tos or blah, blah, blah. Or, they have this sort of jargon, if you like, whereas like, you're just like, it's like 3 legs of a stool. You have the business development, and it's so true. It's just cut to crap and what is essential and what is important about a business. And you just basically explain that in such a and take credit for it as well, Ron, because it is simple. It doesn't have to be complicated in my mind. Are you winning enough work? Are you making profit? Are you managing the people? And have you got a focus on what the future looks like? That's really it.
Well, and you need somebody to hold you responsible.
Accountable.
So, this one gentleman I've been working with for 10 months, a lot of our conversations are, did you do this? Did you do this? Tell me when you're going to get this done.
Yeah.
And it's just a reminder that things need to be done. And again, going back to my business, that's what I didn't have. I flew by the seat of my pants. I did really good because I had a great education that dipped my toe into all different parts of the business. But I could have done better if I had better advice from wiser people.
Yeah, no, I'm here for that. Like, as you're talking, I was thinking to myself as well, for the person that might be listening, that might be in, a relatively stable job and they're comfortable, but they're bored because I think everybody gets to a stage within the corporate environment where they become stale because it's not a challenge for them anymore. They have it all figured out, and they have, you know, they kind of lose that mojo because they've become too comfortable, and the whole company is supporting that comfort because they don't want to lose them. But at the same time, you're not really getting a challenge out of it. And I see people then that kind of like they have this itch where they kind of like, you know what, I'll just go out on my own and I'll set up my own business and I'm going to take it from there. I have my own opinion on this, but what would your advice to that person be if they're thinking about doing that?
Well, they have to understand what they're in for. You know, there's a big difference between the 9-to-5 job and getting a paycheck every week than going out on your own and having to hustle and be responsible for everything. You know, until you have had to go home on a Friday and tell your family, I didn't bring home a paycheck, I paid my guys, if I get a check comes in that was due early next week, I can pay myself. That's the reality, you know, or your wife says, how come there's no money in the checkbook? And your answer is, well, I wrote a personal check to the company to cover payroll. That's a real world. And there are people in big companies making a few $1 million a year that still have to do that from time to time because it's such a tough industry. So you need to be prepared for those kind of things.
Yeah, my own interpretation from my opinion on that would be it's great in the honeymoon period to set up a business, and it's this great buzz of excitement that now you're an independent owner, you know, and you don't have to answer to whoever, and all the failures of what you've seen in corporate life, you can now put those so-called failures or what you deemed was, you know, I would do it different and I would do it better. Now you have this blueprint that you can actually implement, but that's all well and good. But if you don't have a project to go to, there's no point in going out and sort of having this, you know, utopia that I'm going to deliver a bigger and better job than anybody. When in fact you're going around 6 months later and you're still knocking on doors looking for a project. So, you know, my opinion will be don't press the parachute until you actually have that project to actually get your teeth stuck into, so that you can hit the ground running.
Well, and this client I've been working with, his wife has a good job and she could carry the family for the most part. So they went into it together, understanding that he was going to walk away from a job, a little bit of a severance pay for his last projects, but it was going to be months before he saw any income. And he was going to be working a lot of hours. And finally, after nine full months being unemployed, being self-employed now, he's finally starting to do work that's actually bringing in a little bit of profit and being introduced to people with some bigger jobs that have some bigger potential. And I asked him a few weeks ago, how are you feeling? How's your head about your change? And he said, I love it. I'm my own boss. Yeah, I'd like to be making more money, but, you know, I see that the light is starting to be there at the end of the tunnel and I'm going in the right direction. And you've helped me through a lot of things. And you know, it is the right decision for me. And I know it's still going to be tough, but I'm very happy now. He was a traveling foreman, a traveling super, and his biggest reason he wanted to do his own business was he wanted to stay home. He wanted to be home for his family.
Brilliant. And so when you work with them, Ron, is it kind of like you're nearly, when I was talking to you as well, it's nearly like as if you're a board member, like a non-exec director of a board, even though you don't have that title, but it kind of, rather than using the word coach or mentor, it seems like you really dial and plug yourself into these businesses, don't you?
Well, I did all of that non-traditional mentoring throughout my career, just teaching people, working with people, helping people grow. When I felt like I was going to make this change, I took some courses, and I'm a certified life coach. I'm certified as a mentor, but there were a lot of elements of those that just don't fit my personality and my style. And I've developed a style that's really more of a mentor, because a coach asks you questions and helps guide you to find your answers. And some coaching can be really touchy-feely, kind of inner working stuff, and that's not me at all. But as a mentor, I can show you things, I can teach you things, I can provide you with resources and teach you how to use the resources. And then, as we said before, hold you responsible. Okay, 2 weeks ago, we said you were going to do this. What's the update? And when they tell me they have a problem, then we work through a potential solution.
Yeah.
This one guy was adamant he wants to do government work. So I said, well, before you can bid a government work, you got to go get a bond. So I helped him put together paperwork to work with a bonding company. So they give him a bond, $250,000 single, $500,000 cap. And I'm like, that's fantastic. You have a start. There's only one problem. There aren't a heck of a lot of municipal projects, $250,000.
Yeah.
From my experience, they're mostly small parks renovations or interior, change an office space. Yeah, a little more than the city's maintenance department can handle. So he bid a few of them, and he was, third or fourth high on every one he bid. And he asked me why. And I said, because you're working with subcontractors, bigger legitimate guys with crews. I said, my guess is the people you're bidding against in that smaller price range are using mom and pops.
Yeah.
And they're probably doing a lot of hands-on work. Your methodology is you're the superintendent project manager and everybody's a sub.
Yeah.
So your cost of work is higher. So I said, you want to continue bidding that work, you need to find not unqualified people, but people that work at a much lower price.
Yeah.
And try a few. And I said, but the other part of that is you got to remember, when you're bidding government work, it's one and done. If you're not the lowest bidder, you could create a great reputation, but if they don't have another little project, that's it. So I said, you need to start looking for private work for people that do multiple jobs. Yeah. Things like churches, real estate developers, office building owners that need fit ups every time they turn over a tenant, they need a fit up. So when you create a good reputation, they're not going to shop everybody. They're going to come to you first and try to work with you. And he's starting to get in that mode, and it's starting to work for him.
Yeah, you're diversifying and you're spreading your risk, really. Isn't that what it is, Ron? So somebody somewhere along the line is probably not going to pay you or not going to pay you on time. And therefore, having that model kind of allows you not to have troughs, that you kind of create that consistency.
Well, and a client that has continuous work. When I was working for a GC, we worked for a major college in our town, an Ivy League school. I was a project manager for 10 years straight. I did all kinds of projects there. There was probably 3 general contractors. They always asked us for prices. We didn't win every job, but they had enough jobs that with only some very minor lapses, I was there for 10 years running jobs. And then after they put me on bigger jobs, other people from the company were still working there. Those are the kind of clients you want to work for.
Yeah.
And being a private institution, it wasn't a, straight bid, low bid, period.
Yeah.
They wanted to spread the work out. They didn't just want to have 1 or 2 GCs. So they divvied it out a little bit, and we knew who our competition was. They were equal kind of contractors. So if we lost to them, we didn't feel bad. And every once in a while, they would throw somebody else in the mix. And if the person got the job, they probably weren't very happy and they weren't asked to bid the next time, or they didn't know the situation well enough and probably put too much contingency in and didn't win the job.
Yeah.
But when you know a client, you know what they want, they're happy with you. Those are the people you want to continue working for. And again, whether it's a $50,000 quick little room renovation or whether it's a $20 million brand new facility, that's the client you want to take everything that comes your way.
Yeah, it's smart money, basically. Follow the smart money.
Okay. So going back to the people I want to work with. So let's talk about those early career people.
Yeah.
You're young out of college, you get a project engineer or assistant project manager job, and the mentoringship you're getting is teaching you how to do your job. What are the policies and procedures of the company? How do you use the software? And that's the kind of mentoring you get. If you're working for somebody out in the field that you're not super comfortable with, they're not a great communicator, and you have questions and concerns outside of the company, you need somebody to go to. And that's one of the kind of people that I look for is, tell me what your problems are. You don't want your boss to know that you're not good at this. I'm working with a client right now who says, I'm terrible at negotiating. I need help negotiating. We get change orders that come in, and I don't like them, but I'm not winning too many. And the ones that I have to pass on to the owner, and then I have to negotiate with the owner. So I need to negotiate. So he came to me. We're working on a program over the next couple of months where we work together. Then he goes out and tries some things. I've given him some resources to read, come back to me and talk about them. And, that's help he can't get from the good company that he's working for.
Yeah. It's like a buddy system. It's nearly like a buddy system, isn't it?
Well, it's a little bit more than that. But the point is, if you're uncomfortable going to your boss and they don't have a great mentorship training program, you need to go outside to find somebody who's lived it and done it.
Yeah.
You talked about before, lots of people in the industry out there doing coaching, and I see it on LinkedIn. I'm very active there, and I see these people that post, 3 things you need to do to be a better project manager, and those kind of things. And there's a place for that, but that's not what these kind of people need.
No.
They need a lot more than that. And like you said before, I've lived a lot of things. I always joke with people if they say to me, "How come you're so smart?" I said, "I made tons of mistakes." And I believe in learning from mistakes. I don't think I've ever made the same mistake twice. I mean, the only mistake that I could ever correct is I got married, but but I learned from that mistake.
Ron, I like it. If I was a construction owner, no brainer, I would definitely pick up the phone and get in contact with you, because it is refreshing that you're coming at it from, you're not putting an academic type model together. You're basically saying, I'll plug myself into your business to be, a sound block for you for the foreseeable future, for as long as you need me. And I think, you're walking the walk, I commend you for that. And I think anyone that's listening to the show, we need more people, we need more Rons out there that, if you know somebody that might be finishing up in the business of construction, there is this opportunity to reinvent yourself and go back and give back, all of this experience that you have, rather than just, tailing off into the sunset. And there's loads of young, great companies that, as good and all as they are, they can't, inject this type of experience into the business without having to fail and learn and fail and learn. And you don't have to do that. Like, you should, there should be a model where there's people like yourself that you can tap into. So I really commend you for that.
Well, thank you. In today's technology, it's also easy. My sessions are all online, Teams meetings where we can bring up a screen, we can look at documents, we can talk about them, we can share things. I've worked with people all over the country. I've worked with people in Canada. I even, as a volunteer with a program, I helped out a woman in Kenya trying to start a not-for-profit, because I have some not-for-profit background. But I've also learned with working with a lot of different people that business is business.
Yeah.
I can work with people outside the construction business. I can't tell you how to make a pizza or bake a cake, but I can talk to you about your business. The basics are the basics. The way you treat people or the way you is the same.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of things that I can do. And sometimes having conversations with people brings out totally different thoughts.
Yeah.
Talk to a young guy, very, very interesting conversation. His family has a painting company. He's worked there in many different capacities during summers. He's finishing up his college degree, and he's wondering what he should do next. Should he go to work for the painting company? He sort of wants to go to work for a GC and learn more about the business. And I was listening to what he liked and he didn't like. And I said to him, have you thought about pre-construction? And he said, what? And I said, well, you're not taking a strict construction management program. You're taking more of a management logistics program. I said, pre-construction is this area between bidding and starting work. And I said, if you do it right, there's a lot to do there. And there are a lot of different ways to do there. I worked for companies, we called it the 3 Bs: bid it, buy it, build it. And I did it all, and it worked great. And I liked that method because, I built it twice in my head. Now I'm going to go build the real thing. But if you get involved a little bit in the estimating side and putting the bid together, and then you're awarded it, and then you work on all the logistics that are needed to get it ready to turn over to the operations crew, and you become that liaison between the estimator and the project manager. And in a fast track project, if you're even helped by doing all of the submittals and getting all of the upfront done, which project managers usually do, and maybe they're strapped because they're still finishing their last project, there's a lot that you can do in there. And at the end of the conversation, he was excited.
Yeah.
Because he didn't really want to be an estimator, and he didn't really wasn't sure whether he wanted to go back to being a foreman or a superintendent, but he was starting to get intrigued that what he was learning in school and what he knew from actually doing work might make him a good pre-con person. So sometimes having conversations with somebody different, listening to you and what you like and don't like, they can offer you ideas that you never thought about.
Yeah, so I think it should be clear as well that you don't necessarily have to be somebody that just wants to set up a business, or that's somebody that has a small business. Like, even people in corporate, in tier 1 companies, like a lot of the good tier 1 companies do have mentorship and coaching programs where they do bring people like yourself in to challenge these guys at the top level to see, keep them on their toes. So I suppose in talking to yourself, I'm sure you're open to not just talking to one segment. That, if there's an executive team that needs a sort of a workshop day where they just, take their head out of the game for a day and sort of be put into a challenging environment to see, is there a way of getting under the bonnet with these people and get them start thinking differently? And is there other ideas that they can bring to the table that maybe they might want to introduce back into the company? I don't think enough companies do that either, but I do know that there is companies that do it.
Well, and I was involved with a company that was rated in Engineering News Record in the top 100. They're now, I think, in the top 50. And they asked a bunch of us executives to pick somebody to mentor. But they specifically said, we don't want it to be formal, and we don't want you to tell them you're their mentor. We just want you to start spending time with them, nurture them, take them out of lunch, bring them with you to other projects. And that was great. That was nice. But I didn't understand why they didn't want it to be a little more formal and why the people not to know. I've been toying with the idea of providing online lunch and learn sessions. A mid-sized company has, let's say, 4 or 5 jobs going. There's usually 3 to 6 people on a job. Trying to bring all those people into the main office for a 1-hour lunch and learn is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
But again, with today's technology, I can hold a Zoom meeting, have them all come in on a Zoom meeting, and run a lunch and learn just like we were all in a classroom.
Love it. I love
it. My thought is hook up with a company and say, what do your people need to learn?
Yeah.
You tell me, I don't want to develop classes and tell you I want to teach your people these classes. I want to do it the other way. You tell me what you think the majority of your people need. I'll develop a curriculum. It's 1 hour. It'll be online. I'll show it to you. You approve it. And then we set up a date. And it doesn't matter whether there's 4 people that show up or 25 people that show up. I don't have to travel. I'm not going to charge you. I've been involved in those and in setting those up. That the cost of bringing somebody, unless it's a vendor that's coming to do a free thing to tout their greatest product, bringing in a trainer for a day is very expensive.
Yeah.
With today's technology, I can do it at very minimal cost. And that's the other part of all of this. The people that I'm working with, they're not the C-suite executives making big bucks that have lots of money to pay for a therapist.
Yeah.
I get paid for my time. It's reasonable rates. It's rates that people can afford, and I adjust my rates based on what I feel they can afford and what they're looking for.
Love it. Ron, just let's get under the bonnet. Like, who is Ron? A favorite book of yours? Doesn't have to be business, but like.
Recently, I read the book Endurance. It's about Shackleton's adventure going to Antarctica and then bringing back his crew alive.
Yeah.
And a couple of months ago, there was a news broadcast that they found the Endurance. And I sort of way back in my mind remembered something about it, but it sparked me to go get the book. And that was one of those reads that it's hard to put it down. And I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the combination of the history and the adventure, and how they overcame the struggles, and that's part of construction. Construction is never straightforward. Your plan changes every day based on what's thrown at you, and that intrigued me about that book.
It's dynamic, yeah. Knowing what you know now, Ron, what would you do different?
Oh, I go back to saying I needed a real strong mentor when I had my own business.
Love it. Yeah.
As I was thinking about this semi-retirement, one of my thoughts was if I had a good mentor, I might be now thinking about what am I transitioning this business, turning it over to the employees or a second generation.
Yeah.
Instead, I'm trying to figure out what to do because I left that behind years ago.
Yeah. Look, you got to where you are. Like you still got there, but it took you went a different road. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, it's a little bit harder, but you persevere and you work. I mean, along the way, all the different companies I worked for, I learned a lot from a lot of different people.
Yeah.
But I never really had that person as a mentor.
Yeah, I know.
That one person to pick up the phone and call no matter what.
It's invaluable. It's invaluable. Yeah. It's
yes.
like everyone has it at the top. If you're at the top of your game and you don't have a real life mentor like yourself, you're not at the top of your game.
Well, you can always do better. You know, sometimes people just say one thing that hits a spark and sends you in a direction and changes your trajectory, and that's all it takes.
Yeah, all you need is one thing. I remember talking to somebody recently, and they were like, "I don't know why I need to go to that." And it was a 2-day event, and I said, "All you need is one thing. Like, why would you not? It's just just that one thing could be a massive turning point in terms of where you are personally or professionally." So, yeah, favorite holiday destination, Ron?
Well, this is a funny story, but I don't travel on holidays.
Okay.
Many years ago, we decided to travel from downstate New York to Maine to go out on the ocean for a week, and our 5-hour drive took over 9 hours to get there. Wow. And we stayed for the week and we drove back and we had a great time. But the revolution from that was we can take time off any other time we want. We're never traveling on a holiday ever again. Don't need to stand in lines at airports. Don't need to be on a rolling parking lot on a major highway. Stay home, have a little picnic in the backyard, and then go on a time when nobody else goes.
Love it. Ron, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do it? What's the best way? I'm sure you're open to just, an initial call or discovery call, but how do people get in touch with you?
Very active on LinkedIn. Just look up Ron Stein. My email address is coach.ron.stein, STEIN, @gmail.com.
And the website?
No website. You can find out everything you need to know about me is on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn. Ron, it's an absolute pleasure. You're a gentleman and you're very humble, by the way, as well. It's a quality that's, it's a testament to who you are as a person. And anyone that's out there that needs support in construction or feel that it is a lonely world as a business owner in construction, Ron's definitely a guy that you should have on in your phone as somebody that you can get no bullshit, straight to the point, information and advice. And Ron, we loved having you on the Gaffer. I'd love to have you back in the future as well if you wouldn't mind coming back to us.
Well, I enjoyed our conversation. I'm here anytime you want me.
Okay, thanks very much, Ron. Take care now.
Thank you.